Okay, now for this tutorial, I'm back to my sketch and I'm tracing over it. And remember, what did I do? I brought it in and then I dimmed it to 50% and then I locked the layer. It created a new layer on top of it. And it looks like there's nothing in this layer, except there is. There is a path. It's just that that path is what's called an empty path. It has no stroke and no fill. So all it is a theoretical kind of guide that I'm working on. And because it's this red layer, it's showing in red. And you see how I've traced that outside? And I've been showing you how I use the pen tool and the pencil tool and the smooth tool to refine this. And most of all, I use the small selection tool, the white arrow. So if I click on this anchor, I can move it where I think it needs to be. I can move these handles where I think they need to be. But ultimately, if I don't think I need that anchor at all, I can just click the minus button and it changes it to the delete anchor point tool. And then, because you want as few anchors and as few handles as necessary to get the shape you want, and then I'm able to get that curve exactly right. And this is how the pen tool works in Photoshop as well. If you just need really exacting control of a shape, this is the way to do it. How do I get rid of this curve? How do I get rid of this so that I just have a straight? Well, I use the small selection tool and I pull these handles back. That was the wrong handle, because two are on top of each other. That's complicated. Nope, I don't want to round the corner. There it is, okay. So this is the handle I want to pull all the way back. Nope, this is the handle I want to pull all the way. There we go. And if I hold down Shift, it will isolate the other one, so it can't mess up. Same thing here. Hold down Shift and isolate it. It won't mess it up. How do I get this curve right? I have an anchor there I probably don't need. So I can hit minus, subtract it, use the small selection tool. Try to get this curve just right. Very good. So then there's this one. I probably don't need this anchor. But then I need to really work with this curve. Possibly from both ends to get it just right, because it's kind of a complex curve. And move this anchor point where it needs to be. So basically, I'm showing you how to trace a complex shape in Illustrator. Because if you're not able to composite or bring in a clean shape otherwise, this is how you can build something clean and professional looking from scratch. But you can see what a pain it is to like select the right thing, get the right angle. There we go. And that's why for logo design I like sketching in pencil, because when you're plotting vectors, I have this whole pencil width to play with. It's like cutting, so there's no width of your mark. It's an exact placement. So just last one, I need to get rid of this handle. Hold down Shift, get rid of it, and I'm going to move this anchor. So I'll just delete it. Hold down minus, delete that anchor point, go back to small selection tool, get the curve where I need it to be. And maybe move this anchor a little bit. Change this handle a little bit. See, so I'm always just trying to stay within my pencil line. And even though I love the pencil tool a lot more than I like the pen tool, if you want really clean, this is the way to do it. Okay, so now I'm finished. And now I can fill it up. So I'm going to take the fill box here. I'm going to double click it and I'm going to fill it with black. When I'm in Illustrator, I have it show me only the web colors. So I have really, really clear colors. I have no idea why it picked white instead of black. There we go. So now, why did I only fill up half of it? Yes, because if I want this to be pure symmetrical design, even though my sketch isn't exactly symmetrical, this is where digital can really help. I have that as a flat cutout shape. There it is. But if I copy it, so edit, copy, and then I do edit, paste in place. This is what you do for duplicating in Illustrator. Omar, stay with us. Then I can flip it. Now, usually in Photoshop, I just hit Command T, right? I can't do that here. I have to have this path selected, and it is the duplicate. Then I say Object, Transform, Reflect, and I want to reflect it on a vertical at 90 degrees. Say OK, and then I'm using the large selection tool. Hold down Shift so it stays straight, and I line it up with my intersection right there. See how that works? And I can use the arrow keys and get it just right so that without the guide showing, because vectors are very, very picky. So without the guide showing, I'm almost there. The more I zoom in, the slower these movements will be. There we go. Up. And let's move this one. I want those anchor points right on that line. Okay. So now I've got a complex shape, but is it one shape or two shapes? It's two shapes, and that's a problem. So how do I combine them? This is another trick you need to know if you're going to do a lot of this in Illustrator. So I have to select both of them, and I can do that right here under the paths. I can hold down Shift and select multiples. I could use the large selection tool and hold down Shift, click on both of them. Once I have two selected, I'm going to use a new tool. It's called the Pathfinder tool, or Pathfinder window. You'll find it under Window. Pathfinder. This allows you to merge different paths together or to isolate them, cut them out of each other. So I'm just going to use the most basic one, which is to merge them. And now it's all one shape. Better yet, I'm going to make this into a cool logo, right? I need to keep it pretty simple. My sketch is complicated, but what it does have is it has different layers of that outside shape, right? So how can I do that without having to redraw everything? I've already made the complicated shape. So now I use that as a template. I copy it, edit, copy. I paste it in place. I might fill it in just so you can see it with a different color. I would use white, but that might confuse you like I cut a hole in it, and I haven't done that yet, so I'm going to use pink. Okay? And then I can hold down Shift and Option, just like you transform in Photoshop, and I can shrink it down inside. Make sense? So it's like two cutouts now. It's like making snowflakes or something. Okay, now how do I cut this shape out of this shape? I'm going to use Pathfinder again. So I select them both, hold down Shift until both of those paths are selected. Now I go to the Pathfinder, and this time I'm going to do, last time I merged them, but if I merge these, they would just all be one. This time I'm going to cut one out of the other. And it takes the color of whatever the one on top is, or the properties of the one on top. So I'm going to turn that back to black now. And you can see it's now cut out. Pretty cool. Now I can take a copy of that, copy, edit, paste in place. And now I have two of those. I can hold down Option and Shift. I can shrink it in a little bit more. And let's say that's my logo version. That's as complex as I want to get. Now I just need the bird shape, and I'm going to put that over the top. Okay, so I'm going to lock this layer, turn it off for now, make a new layer, and now I just need to trace the bird. And I'll simplify it a little bit. This time, I'm going to use the pencil tool, and I'm going to trace the whole thing, not just half of it, because this isn't symmetrical, right? The bird is a little asymmetrical. But I'm going to set the pencil tool by double-clicking. I'm going to set it more towards the smooth side than the accurate side. And that way it will place fewer anchors as I go. So I'm just going to start drawing. I'm on a new layer. I've locked the others so I don't accidentally redraw them. This layer group is green. And I'm a little wobbly. That's okay. And I'm just going to do the outside shape, because shape is what matters, just like if you're cutting paper. And the disadvantage here over cutting with an X-Acto knife is that you can't like turn the paper or something. Not unless you have a Cintiq. Photoshop has the ability to pivot the screen, but not in the middle of using a tool like this. Good tablets allow you to do that, but we're using basic, cheap $60 tablets. So you can see that some of my drawing of the outline is not as good as other parts. That's to be expected. But the beauty of Illustrator, now that I've completed the whole path, you see it didn't plot that many anchors, and sometimes it didn't plot enough, right? It simplified it too much. But let's go ahead and fill that in with black so I can see the shape. Okay. And now, what I love about the pencil tool is I can redraw them. So I can give this a little bit more feeling. This is exactly how I designed Nico for the campus. Just using the pencil tool. If you don't start through an anchor and end through an anchor, though, it will draw a new path instead of recutting it. So I'm having trouble getting through that last anchor. So I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'll start here and work backwards. There we go. So make sure you go through an anchor point. These look a little silly, but I kind of like them. That's what's weird about drawing in Illustrator. It's certainly more mechanical than traditional drawing, especially when you have these smooth options. Now, look at that. I have something here that has now too many anchor points, and I could try to redraw it with the pencil tool, but I can also use the smooth tool for that, which is right under the pencil, and it will just kind of average out those anchors for me. And I can always delete some and use the small selection tool to control that curve as well. So you have all these options. Okay, so now I've got a cutout of the bird. Up the back heel of this I should probably round out. I like what it did there, so I want to repeat that. In fact, I'll show you a little trick here so we can use all the skills we're learning. I'm going to redraw it through here,